Hello and welcome to the first video version of my web development tutorials on sarikden.github.io. Today's topic is going to be how to create a Jekyll spotlight search. That is a search that automatically updates as you're typing and shows you the results that best match what you've typed. So, there's also going to be a written version of this tutorial, already is a written version of this tutorial on my website, sarikden.github.io. Link will be in the description. And without further ado, let's jump in and get to coding. So, first things first is you're going to want to create a Jekyll site, unless you already have one that you're adding this to, in which case work with the one you've got. And I've gone ahead and created a basic Jekyll site using their default layout. And the only thing I've changed is I've added a page for our search, which is just search.markdown using the layout search.html, which just extends the default layout and says search at the top, which I'm going to delete. So, oops, got to boot up my Jekyll server. Now, the first thing we're going to want to do is to create a directory for our includes. This is a built-in Jekyll feature, and it's smart enough to pick it up if you just put an _includes directory in the root of your project. Then within the includes directory, we're going to create an include called postfeed.html. And although this is an HTML template, we're going to be formatting it as JSON data that will then pick up through an application/JSON tag, script tag on the page in question that we're putting our search on. So let's get cracking. We're going to create an array, and inside that array, we're going to loop over all the posts in site.post. Post. I'm going to end the for there. And for each post in our site, we're going to create a JavaScript object with the properties title, snippet, and href. The title will simply be the post.title. The snippet will be the post.content, but because we don't want to look through the entire post.content for every single post on our site, because that could get quite slow over time, we're going to truncate the words to 25. We're also going to strip the HTML, so we're not getting HTML tags in our search results, or in the text that we're searching, that is. We're going to escape it, so if there's any quotation marks or anything like that that would mess up the JSON formatting, they'll be turned into HTML entities. And we're also, this is one I just learned, we're going to strip new lines, which just means that when there's new lines in the text, it won't jump us down to a new line in our JSON object, because that will also screw with the JSON. The href is simply going to be the post.permalink, which we may have to go back and add to all our posts, but that's easy enough. That's another built-in Jekyll feature. Now, at the end of this object, right before we get to the end for loop, so still within the for loop, we're going to have an if statement, and we're going to make use of this cool for loop object that Jekyll gives us with the last property to check if it's the final iteration, or to check if it's not the final iteration. And if it's not, we're going to put a comma just to keep our JSON valid. And we'll end the if right there. So basically what that's doing is it's putting commas at the end of each object unless it's on the final object, at which point it puts no comma. Keeps our JSON valid, keeps the browser happy, all is well. So save that, and we won't be seeing anything just yet, but what we're going to do in the next step is we're going to go script, type equals application / JSON. I believe I've got that right. Let me just double check. Yep, application JSON. The ID is going to be search data. That's just so we can reference it with our later scripts. And inside of this, we're going to throw our include that we just made. Or rather, we're going to include it. Include post feed, not deed, feed.html. And just like that, we should save that and head on over to our site. And if we inspect the elements, it's going to be a little weird. This is the sort of stuff, by the way, that you're going to want to put in the sort of default wrapper layout that you're using on your page. You don't really want to put this on specific pages. Rather, you'd want it to exist on every single page on your website. But for the sake of this tutorial, I'm just going to keep it simple and just keep it on this search page that I've created. And also, generally speaking, you'd want it right at the body, the bottom of the body tag, not sort of like halfway through inside this div wrapper main blah blah blah. But still, it'll still work, and for the sake of our tutorial, we'll keep it simple. Anyways, it looks like it's outputting an empty array, so it's outputting something, which is cool, but I think that should have been site.posts. And there you go. Now we have a JSON blob of all of our site's posts prettied up, and it's looking like the hrefs are all empty, and that's because we haven't specified permalinks on the post. So let's just do that now really quickly. /welcome permalink is /test2 permalink is /test1. Now if we reload that, now we have valid links to all of our posts. Awesome. So with that out of the way, the next step is we're going to create a script tag, another script tag, inside of our search template. Again, this is the kind of thing that you'd probably want to include in an external script file and link it to your default template that's wrapping everything. But for simplicity's sake, we'll just throw it here for now. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a variable, and I'm using ES6 JavaScript in this case just to keep old browsers happy, but this is certainly something you could do with I'm using ES5 JavaScript. You could certainly do it with ES6 or whatever you like, but just to keep old browsers happy, I'm using ES5. So JSON.parse, our search data is equal to document.get element by ID. We'll pass in the search data ID that we defined earlier up here, text content. Now, just to test if this is working, we'll console log it and see what happens. And hey, look at that. We have an array of objects, and each object represents a post. Neat. So now, the next step we want to do is we want to build out the HTML of our search form. Do that a little bit higher up here. Actually, why don't we throw it at the top just in case, for whatever reason, there is content on this page. You know what? I could actually probably just get rid of that. We don't need that. There's not going to be any content on this page other than what we're putting here. So first up, we'll put an input type equals search, ID equals search, search bar, placeholder equals search me baby. And then underneath that, we'll throw a div that we'll call search results. And that is going to be where all of our search results live, which will be empty to begin with, but we'll fill it in with JavaScript. I guess I don't need a new line there. So save that, reload, and there you go. We have a little search input, type in it, whatever. Oops. And our results will show up right down there. So now, I'm going to leave the styling and the CSS and all that stuff up to you. For the sake of our tutorial, we're just going to have an ugly, unstyled search form. But you're probably going to want to pretty it up and make it fit the theme of your site, and so on and so forth. So now that we've got that, it's time to get on to our main search function. So we've already got our search data defined. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a reference to the search result list. Oops. Search results list equals document dot get element by ID again. And we'll call that search results. Pass in the ID we specified earlier in our HTML. Now we're also going to do the same thing with our search input. Get element by ID, search bar. Now we're going to define a function called update search results. That'll be a function, and it's going to have an argument of E, which stands for the event object that's being passed in. And from that event object, we can get our query, which is just going to be e.target, which is the target element that, in this case, would be the search bar, dot value. And we could just leave it there, but I'm also going to add dot to lower case, so that this way our search will be case insensitive. Now we'll check if query.trim, which trims any white space and just makes it, removes any white space on either side of the string. Check if it isn't an empty string, and if it isn't, proceed. Otherwise, you could show like an error message saying, you know, please enter something other than spaces, whatever. And then we'll empty the inner HTML of our results list and loop over all of the objects in our search data array. We'll create a variable called search item, which is just simply the search data at the given index. And we'll say if search item dot title dot to lowercase again, because we're making this case insensitive, dot includes the query. So that means if the query string that they're entering matches anywhere inside the string of our title, we'll enter this if condition. We'll say that, or search item, not input, item, dot snippet, dot to lowercase, dot includes query. So that, what we're doing here is if the search that they entered matches either in the title or in the snippet that we defined, as you may remember right here, then we're going to create a new element. So we'll call this var search link equals document dot create element, and we're going to create a link element, and we're going to say var search content, which is going to be the text node inside this link element. Document dot create text node. Did I spell document right? certainly did not. Document. Good lord, I can't spell. Let's just try this one more time, shall we? Document.create text node. And for that, we're going to pass in the search item title. We're going to set the href attribute of our search link, our newly created search link. Set attribute href, and that's going to be equal to the search item dot href, which again we defined in our feed right there as the permalink. We're going to append child the search content, which is just the title that we are adding inside the link. And then we're going to append the link to the search result list. All right. And with that function out of the way, that is the meat of our code right there. We're going to excuse me, just had a moment. We're going to bind, add an event, bind the key up event to update search results. And if we take a look at this in the browser, we may just have a working search. Again, you're going to want to throw some styling in there. I'm not going to do much with that, but I will do one thing just to add a little bit of simplicity, or not simplicity, but I'm going to add one quick style here. Search results A, display block, just so they're not all beside each other like that. And there you go. If you search test posts come up. If you search welcome comes up, and it links us to the post. There you go. So, thanks for watching, ladies and gentlemen. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe and give it a thumbs up, or whatever you people do nowadays. As I mentioned before, the text version of this tutorial is available on my website, sarikden.github.io. There will be a link to that in the description. Stay tuned, because we're going to have a lot more tutorials coming your way, both text and video format, for whichever you prefer. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it. Have a great day.